Okay, we now know the exact cost to leave the ACC, take your media rights with you, and it's way lower than we thought.
You are Locked On ACC, your daily podcast on the Atlantic Coast Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Shout out to the everydayers, and thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. He is Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Dono from Locked On Canes. On this episode, we'll talk about the ACC's long-term future. A lot of what got done this week is for the short term, not the long term. We'll talk about an alternative narrative because there are other shows, national shows, and columnists that are covering this thing a little bit differently than Kenton and I have so far this week. But Kenton, we found out, and thank goodness, now that the settlement has been signed, we get public record information. Pete Thamel from ESPN put this out on Tuesday. The new exit fee formula for the ACC, which is per the Clemson Public Board meeting. It would cost at the end of the fiscal year 2026, it would cost $165 million to leave the ACC, which is still kind of steep, but the fee descends by $18 million every year until it gets down to just $75 million in 2030, 2031, and then it levels off at that point. And importantly, the member, if you buy your way out, you would leave with your media rights after paying the fee. So, Kenton, did you imagine that it would cost only $75 million 5-6 years from now to leave the conference?
Absolutely not. That's never something I saw as being a feasible possibility. But again, this just tells me that there is some other force at play here, because I'm not understanding from the ACC side of things. The last thing we heard was, hey, ESPN has agreed to the extension. The ACC now has stability and security. That is a massive win for the ACC. And then I come back and look up, and all of a sudden, the ACC is giving away the barn. So, there is, in terms of the cost dropping from 165 right now to 75 in the future, I mean, it's one of those things where you just look up and you're like, how did this happen? How did this come to be? Obviously, I am not a lawyer. I have not been in the courtroom every day. I have not been to discovery or anything along those lines, but I'm still looking for some way to make this math make sense. Because even if we go by the most aggressive, and by the most aggressive, I mean the most egregious folks who I would consider to be somewhat reputable, we're saying that the buyout for right now was approximately $200 million.
Yeah.
So even that is not accurate to right now. It's $35 million lower than that if it is 165, correct?
It's I think it might be 200 now, but it's 165 at the end of the 2026 fiscal year.
Okay. So either way you cut or slice it, it's just one of those things that's just like, the cost being that low. And again, everything must be put into proper timing, right? Because the deal gets lower right around the same time as everybody in terms of the Big Ten and SEC are doing what now? Renegotiating their TV deals. Things that make you go, what's going on there? That seems a little suspicious. What do they know that we don't?
Yeah, and so this settlement, which of course, not only as we just discussed, defines the terms and the buyout number to leave the conference. We know exactly now what it costs to get out of the ACC, which is huge. That was something that Florida State and FSU wanted. They wanted to know how much. Can you give us a number? How much it's going to cost to leave? Not only that, but the initiatives which are going to be part of this settlement, which I love, actually. I mean, the success initiative. If you do more winning on the field, you win more football games and championships, and you win in basketball, you're going to earn more money through your success on the field and on the hardwood. I think we can all agree that seems fair, right? If you compete and win more, you should get paid more. And then you have the brand initiative. If you get higher TV ratings, you earn more money because of that. I also think that's fair, Kenton, because where does the money come from? The money comes from the TV deal. So if you're getting more eyes on your product on TV, stands to reason you should get paid more, right?
I'm okay with that delineation coming in, but how grave the delineation is what is a little bit disheartening for me, because as much as we would love to say, hey, these things function off of, we're professionalizing college sports, so these things are going to be very free market. And I understand that this is a contradiction from me, because I'm very much so one of those guys that's like, the players need to get paid. They're driving all of this. However, at some point in time, we must acknowledge this is still college athletics. Yes, this is professional to some extent, but there are still many, many things in place that are like, hey, if you have this, you have to have that. Hey, these two things have to be somewhat equal. The entire existence, or let me not say entire existence, let me not say that. A bulk of the existence of Title IX, the principle behind it is, hey, because of things that are out of these folks' control, they will never have the same viewership, the same, they'll never have those same things, but they deserve somewhat the same capacity or the same facilities or the same resources in some way. So I look at this situation and I say, again, a lot of people are saying you've helped the conference. And I live in Central North Carolina and I live in Raleigh, and I want to quote a fellow Central North Carolinian in one Jermaine Cole. Look at you, brother. You came a long way. That's the good. Oh, I'm sorry. The good news is, brother, you came a long way. The bad news is you went the wrong way, because I really believe the ACC is sacrificing a bunch of teams at the altar of Clemson and Florida State. And again, I am not saying that, hey, they have not carried the conference for years by themselves. I'm not acknowledging that. They absolutely have. I just think the delineation being as great as it's going to be, that's a little bit tenuous.
Well, here's my rebuttal to what you just said, because this is something else we've learned this since our last episode. This settlement was unanimously approved by every school. So even the ones that are theoretically getting money taken away from them, because as you have pointed out, if teams that do better TV ratings and win more, if they're getting a bigger piece of the pie, it's still the same size pie. You're just, in order to slice a bigger piece for Florida State, Clemson, Miami, you have to take away a portion of other pieces. So, what do you think, for the Wake Forest, the Boston colleges to vote unanimously to approve this? Were they just too afraid of the alternative, and being in the ACC with less revenue is still better than any other option? Why do you think this was unanimously passed?
I think it was unanimously passed because, again, there's information that we're not privy to in this thing. That is very pertinent. I feel like the only way that I can understand unanimously, not one school saying, hey, I strongly oppose this, is based on the principle of, hey, listen, the reality is this. If anything goes wrong in either of these lawsuits, that extension we just signed with ESPN is done. It's cooked. Yeah. It's off the table. Because if that's the case, and if that's what was relayed to these schools, then I get it. I understand, oh, hell no, we can't risk it. We legitimately cannot risk the 1% chance or the 50% chance or the however many percent chance that anything goes wrong, because there are too many administrators, there are too many people making hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars based off of things kind of maintaining the status quo or as close to status quo as possible. So if you are looking at the opportunity of that going away, then sure, I can understand that. But again, Donald, you and I have no information that has indicated that. But there seems to be something more at play. Because again, as we understand it, the last major battle was the victory for the ACC. And then the actual war goes to Clemson and Florida State in a way that we could not have imagined after hearing, hey, this is a huge legal blow. It just doesn't make sense. So that's why I would imagine this kind of being approved. And like you said at the end of your moment there, in terms of, hey, this is better than the alternative of going to some other conference. Absolutely. I mean, with all due respect, who would take some of these schools? We can all pretend, hey, Drake Toll, I know you're listening, you little hater. I know that he's going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, the Big 12 will take all of you guys. Let's be honest. The Big 12 ain't trying to take Boston College. Yeah. Let's be honest. The Big 12 ain't trying to take Wake Forest. You're cutting up your pie. You're cutting up your pie for somebody who ain't bringing much. And that's with all due respect to those programs. But
Yeah.
that's just what it is.
Well, when we come back, I want to, kind of offer up what others are saying, because Kenton and we believe that the way that we're covering this settlement is logical and fair. Others are covering it a different way, and I kind of wonder why. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy to use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert service and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. For your next listen, make sure you check out our other shows. Kenton Gibbs and Grayson Boone do an awesome job hosting Locked On Wolfpack, covering everything NC State. I cover everything Miami at Locked On Canes. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. So, I'm not saying everybody is covering it differently than we are, because obviously you certainly see a lot of celebration, and rightfully so, from Florida State fans and FSU media. Scored a big win with this settlement. Clemson, same deal. I have noticed, Kenton, that some of the national publications and big national shows are, though, trying to paint this like this is one of those win-win things, right? I mean, don't you always, whenever you talk about a great deal, when you make a great deal, usually both sides feel a little bit of pain, or both sides get something big out of it. I mean, in our opinion, Florida State and Clemson are getting a lot more out of this. I thought Bud Elliott, who's a national college football guy, but his roots are Florida State, and he's not shy about that. He tweeted out today, FSU and Clemson end up with what they asked for 2 years ago, but fall short of getting what they sued for. But isn't that usually how it goes, Kenton? Like you sue for something extreme, and they end up getting everything they wanted 2 years ago, an opportunity for more revenue, uneven revenue split, and clear, defined, and affordable terms to get out of the conference in a few years. This is a much bigger win for Florida State and Clemson, despite what others may say.
Even if the thought is, hey, these two are suing to get out right now, it's better. Bud, I need you to be smart. It's better for you to stay here right now. It's literally better.
Yeah.
Which conference would unilaterally say, bring him in? Bring him in as a full member right now. Who?
I don't think anyone. And by the way, it's important to point that out, because there were some potentially, bad faith actors in social media who are creating this buzz like, oh yeah, the Big Ten wants them right now. 2025, 2024, even 2020. The Big Ten, I don't believe that was the case. Now in 2031 with the next TV deal, sure, that might be the case, but I don't think, like you said, I don't think they had anywhere to go right now.
Not only did they not have anywhere to go right now, but again, the distortion of what this case was and is, and the fact that it is a definitive win for Clemson and Florida State, it distorts the reality around all of college sports. When people are saying, oh, well, now not only is this a win for Miami and UNC, it's also a win for Bama and Georgia, because they're going to demand the same thing. Florida State and Clemson had the leverage of, we will leave if we do not get our terms. Where are Georgia and Bama going?
I don't know. Could they threaten to go independent? And I'm being serious when I ask that question. Like
Sure, and they could. They absolutely could. They absolutely could. What TV company is going to pay them enough individually to give them over what the conference is talking about.
I hear
Who's gonna do that?
Lifetime wants to add football games.
Yeah, okay. And what you're going to end up with in essence, even if these schools were to think, oh, that's going to work out, it would work out in a way where business guys who are smarter than us regular folks, have more leverage than us regular folks, are going to say, no, this is stupid. This is like a different streaming service for everything instead of just getting cable. No, give us one central location where we can get all this stuff. Oh, wait, those are called conferences. So when you look at this and you say, you know, how was this a win, or did Florida State and Clemson get everything they want? Again, put this in context of what just happened. What more could they ask for other than a free and unfettered release? And even if you got that, it may work more to your detriment than you believe.
Bingo.
You may believe, hey, there'll be a bidding war out for me, but just out of curiosity, right? We know, again, there's always more information at hand than what anybody that's not directly involved knows. There's always that. Why would those folks make those arguments? Again, that's why I feel like this was an ESPN or Disney influenced thing, because there was a lot of money that they stood to lose even if Clemson says, hey, we win this case, we're going to go to the Big Ten. We're only going to take a partial share, whatever the case may be. We'll take less money just to not be there. And the ACC loses their media rights or whatever the case may be. You just taking a massive risk. So ESPN loses a lot of money, and so does the rest of the conference. It feels like, again, there was just more at play here because, again, the narrative that this is a win for the ACC, I would say how? Because you got 5 more years of very much so stressful and rocky existence? Sure, I guess.
Yeah, let me play devil's advocate on that. Because obviously, like, it's not a complete L for the ACC would have been, hey, you're losing Florida State and Clemson right now. They're gone, and they don't have to pay anything. 0.0 is what they have to pay. That's what complete loss would look like for the ACC. But I mean, how much of a win can we paint this as, Kenton? I mean, I know Jim Phillips was not sleeping very well, for the past couple of years, with these lawsuits going on and all this disturbance happening with it. So at least Jim Phillips gets momentary peace, the ACC commissioner, and you do buy yourself short-term stability, which isn't nothing, right? I mean, I had a conversation earlier this week with Spencer McLaughlin on Locked On College Football, and he sees this as more of a win for the ACC than you and I do, but part of his logic is, now Spencer McLaughlin, he also covers Oregon, and he used to host Locked On Pac-12. Why does he no longer host Locked On Pac-12? Because there's no more Pac-12 to talk about. And so his point was like, hey, the Pac-12 disappeared as quickly as they did because they were not willing to do what the ACC just did, and that was agree to an uneven revenue split, which is something that, the USC's and UCLA's and Oregon's, the big hitters there, that's what they wanted, an uneven revenue split. The Pac-12 was not willing to do it, so they died a much quicker death. And Kenton, that's not nothing, right? I know the long-term thing is still scary, right? I mean, you and I know we may only have another 6 years hosting Locked On ACC, so in like 5 years' time, I'm going to have to spruce up my resume a little bit, but short-term security is not nothing. That is somewhat of a win for the ACC compared to what happened to the Pac-12.
But again, and this is why I say we always need to put into alignment the proper context of these situations. The Pac-12 was at the end of their TV deal, and guys were like, hey, we're not re-signing unless. Who had to pay to leave the Pac-12? Did USC pay? UCLA, perchance? Washington? Oregon? Did anybody pay anything to leave? No. They were at the end of their deal, and these schools said, you know what? You're not going to give us a realignment of this. We're out. And then the smaller Pac-12 team said, well, the Big 12 is looking for folks now. I heard ever since they lost Texas and Oklahoma, they say, hey, if I can't get another dime, I can replace it with 2 nickels. I can do a little something. And that's what that has worked out to be. This is a very different situation because The ACC's deal runs through 2036.
Yeah.
If we were at 2035 and people said, hey, Kenton, this deal was struck to extend us to 2040, I'd say, hell yeah, this is a win for the ACC. You got 5 more years on top of what you already got. Hey, Jimmy P, you my boy. You did your thing. Them lawyers did their big one in court. You know what I mean? Hey, this is undefeated in the courtroom. The brand is brolic. However, the deal was to 2036, and now we're talking about an impending implosion in 2030, 2031. I don't see how you can spin that as a win. And again, if it was a very similar situation, if it's a exact mirroring situation where you're at the end of the lease, that's a different situation. We're at virtually the beginning. We're at a decade left, and you got it cut in half. And we're saying, well, because you didn't, I'll pitch it to you like this, and then I'm gonna give it back to you, Dono.
Okay.
What were your optimistic expectations for Miami football this year?
My optimistic expectations were at least get into the college football playoff. That was where I was at.
Okay, so that team fell short of your expectations, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. What were your optimistic expectations for Miami basketball this year?
NIT.
NIT. So that team fell short of that, correct?
Yeah.
Is there not a difference in how desperately they've fallen between where they missed the expectations?
Yeah.
So when you talk about this isn't a complete loss for the ACC, absolutely, it isn't a blowout. It isn't like, hey, Florida State and Clemson are going to be laughing at you guys all the way to the bank for forever. Sure, it's not that, but you still got your ass whooped. It wasn't a knockout, but you went to decision, and all 3 judges picked the same guy winning by 6 rounds. That's what this is.
Well, when we come back, I want to hypothesize what the ACC is going to look like after 2031. I don't necessarily think it's going away completely, but I think it's going to look a lot different. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this brand new episode of Locked On ACC. Thank you for making us your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure you're checking out Locked On College Basketball. It's March now. You know what that means. Big time games, conference tournaments. The big dance is coming up this month. Isaac Shade and Andy Patton on Locked On College Basketball will get you ready for it. You want to become an expert before the tournament starts. It's going to help you fill out that bracket, if you know what I mean. So make sure you're checking out Locked On College Basketball, available free wherever you get your podcasts, and available free on YouTube. You know, as you note, Kenton, the TV deal for the ACC with ESPN, it runs through 2036, despite all this uncertainty up to 2031, right? I wonder if the extra 5 years of that deal can help somewhat keep the conference together, because, okay, think about what might happen in 2031, right? When it becomes a lot more affordable for anybody to leave. And we know the teams that want to leave most are Florida State and Clemson. Well, Kenton, even if FSU and Clemson, if they decide to, we're going to pay the $75 million buyout, we're going to the SEC or the Big Ten, then you take them out of the picture, and then theoretically you can carve out a bigger slice of the pie for everyone left. Do you think that might give the ACC enough leverage to convince your Miamis, your UNCs, your Louisvilles, SMU, who had a really good season and so on, that, hey, you know what? We still have something to offer you. That obviously we no longer are as relevant of a conference as we just were. We're not as relevant as the Big Ten and the SEC, but you still have automatic college football playoff bids here. And now that those two are not only leaving, but had to pay their way out for a combined $150 million, we're going to have extra revenue to present to you. So the ACC might be able to use that college football playoff tie-in, even more extra revenue to keep most of the rest of their conference together.
I have said this multiple times, and I still say this now. Even without Clemson, even without Florida State, the ACC is in much more of a Big 12 without Texas and Oklahoma situation than they are to being in a Pac-12 when USC and UCLA announced they were leaving the situation. Or was it USC and Oregon? Whichever one it was.
Yeah, USC and UCLA were first.
Yeah, so USC and UCLA, whichever one yes, that. We're much more like the Big 12 because – again, there is still something that holds you together for years. You are still all locked in 4 years. If y'all think that I'm lying, then just tell me this. of all the schools that are left, because there will be 16, how many have 75 million to fork up right away and have a new home that's going to pay them more?
That's, I mean, 75 million is still 75 million. Like, I know that it doesn't, when we were talking about 500 plus, like 75 million in comparison doesn't sound like a lot of money. That's still a lot of money.
But I to me, the 75 million isn't even the toughest part. It's the and a place to land that will pay you more. Because when you look at what these TV deals are talking, what's the current revenue share for each team, Dono? What is roughly the revenue share for each team?
It was about 20 million?
About 20 million. So if we talk about, again, just through the duration of 2031 through 2036, even if we go perfectly round with 20 million, that's $100 million over those years. Who else is going to pay you that? Somebody's got to be willing to take you in and pay you that. And again, a lot of these schools who believe themselves, who think very high of themselves, who look at their numbers from that poll saying last 5 years we've done great things in terms of viewership. Sure, good, great for you, wonderful. The reality is you still have to prove your value and prove your worth to the big two if you want to sit at that big dog table. And like I have said a billion times, which people refuse to listen to me on, realignment has not been driven by basketball. And the unfortunate part is the ACC is historically a basketball conference. So you can say, oh, my brand demands this and my brand demands that, and my brand is bigger than all these schools that have been in the Big Ten for forever. Well, you just stated why they're going to be there. They've been there forever.
Yeah.
Even if Purdue doesn't pull in the same numbers you do, they've been there forever. They're already sitting at the table. It's harder for you to get into a table you're not at than for them to maintain a seat at a table that they've been sitting at for 50 damn years. So, I look at this and I say, I think that we're in much more of a Big 12 situation because a lot of Big 12 teams were in the exact same situation. Yeah. Where else were you going to go? Tell me. Well, since you're so smart, you know everything. Tell me where you were going to go when things fell apart. And we saw a lot of those teams stay because they didn't have anywhere else to go. Same thing is going to happen here, much more than the Pac-12, where, again, those biggest brands had somewhere to go right away, and the smaller brands were like, well, hell, we'll go somewhere and figure out something. But, again, we're not in that same space.
All right, moving on from the settlement, we've got spring football practices happening in most of the ACC and around the country right now. Like I've been covering Miami spring football this week. I noticed something about, and I can't wait to hear Kenton's take on this, North Carolina Tar Heels spring football. You want to know what Bill Belichick has cooking there in his first week as a collegiate head coach. So North Carolina players, and I don't know, man, maybe some people probably love this, right? External motivation for your players. So North Carolina players in spring practice, they do not have names on their jerseys, and none of them have been assigned numbers because Bill wants to preach this idea that you have to earn, not only do you have to earn getting your name on the back of your jersey, you need to earn your number. So we got every Tar Heel is running around spring practice. And by the way, I'd hate to be a reporter covering it, trying to figure out who's who, but everyone's running around spring football practice wearing, regular, plain blue and white jerseys, no names, no numbers, because Kenton, those have to be earned.
More power to him. This is one of those things that I think is like greatly overblown. It's like the black stripe thing at Ohio State and all that. It's like, more power to you. I don't really like whatever you do to motivate your team. Cool. Yeah. This isn't one of those things I feel strongly enough about one way or the other to say, Bill's an idiot. I told you all.
I was hoping for that. I'll be honest. I was hoping to get some of that.
And here's the thing. Anybody who knows me knows I never ham it up for the air. Any way I feel about it, if you talk to me in real life, for the listeners who have seen me out somewhere and asked me about something, the things I'm passionate about, I'll be passionate about. The things I don't care about, I really don't. And this is one of those things I'm just like, more power to you. I think it's really hard to instill that when, again, cameras are on you because of HBO doing Hard Knocks off season. When, again, you talk about earning it. Yeah. what has that program done to deserve that? So I think it's kind of, you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. We're the 33rd NFL team, despite not having the draft picks to align with that. But we need you to earn your jersey number. It's just one of those things where it's just like, more power to you, bro. Hopefully it works out for you.
We shall see. So and apparently I was reading, this is something that Belichick always wanted to do this with the Patriots, but the NFL would not allow it. Like, you have to have assigned numbers, and probably the NFL is thinking, like, we really don't want to screw out the reporters that cover training camp now, because again, like, Kenton, when I'm out and I've covered Miami long enough, like I recognize some of the faces and the body type, sure, but I'm also like, when I'm watching these practices, I got the roster I had in front of me, I'm looking down. Wait, who's that? That guy changed his number. Who's that transfer player? Covering UNC practices is not much fun right now for the media.
I'm gonna tell you what, if you know anything about UNC media as well as I do, with some of the things that they've come out and said recently, I don't want them staring too close at too many players, but that's another story another time.
That's another story, yeah.
In all seriousness, this is one of those things where, I mean, you're absolutely right, Dono. That's a very, very, very odd thing to do, especially from the media side. But again, I'm being nice to Bill Belichick, because I've been told I need to be nice to Tari, so I'm doing it. I'm doing the nice thing. In all seriousness, I do think that whatever it takes to motivate your team, whatever it takes to instill your thing, go for it. More power to you, man.
Well, when you talk about, like, you have to earn your jersey number, like, I guess, like, whoever has, like, the worst numbers will know where the worst, like, what would be, like, a bad number? Like, if you're, like, I don't know, like, number 57 or something, like, is that, like, the way, like, whoever is that the worst player on the team, the guy who wears 57? Like, I don't, like, what's a bad number? I don't really understand that.
Well, that's the thing. Whenever you have a situation where you earn it, or you get to, like, you earn the right to pick. So some people, I was a guy, I love 99. I always loved 99.
99's a great number.
And oddly enough, I loved it because of Hurricane alum Warren Sapp. He was my guy, and he wore 99. I wanted to be like him growing up. So I always wanted to wear 99. That doesn't mean that you're a bad player if you wear 99, even though if you're a receiver wearing 99, people are going to look at you. What's Buddy doing there? When Devin Gardner wore 98 at quarterback for Michigan, everybody's like, that just looks wonky.
Yeah, like, I feel like that's a thing in soccer. Like, in soccer, if you're wearing, like, a number in the 20s, you're probably not very good, right? And if you're the best players on the team, if you're either a forward or midfielder, number 9 and number 10, those are the pinnacles. Like, those are the great numbers. Now, if you're a forward wearing number 17, you probably suck, right? But I never felt that same correlation with football.
I don't. It gives you the right to pick, and again, when you get the right to pick, you're going to see different things. Like, yes, if you're a wide receiver with 57, yes, if you're a cornerback, if you are a corner wearing 57, buddy, go jump in that portal. Get ready to learn some Gardner Webb. Get ready to learn some Lenore Ryan, because you are not. Get ready to learn some Sanford Bulldog football, brother, because you are not there. But, I mean, for the most part, everybody likes different things, because I was a 99 guy. But I played with a defensive lineman that he loved the number 1. I played with another guy who it was a family thing. Like, everybody in his family had worn 20, and so he really wanted 20, even though he was a defensive lineman. So it's tough to decide, like, what numbers make you trash and what numbers don't. It's just when you see it and you're like, the only thing I will say that's odd about the earn your number thing, what if a guy does great in spring ball and then stinks it up in fall camp? Do you... Like, if there's, like, a battle for number 1, which, of course, there will be.
Right.
What if one guy balls out in spring ball and then puts on a world-class stinker in fall camp? Are you like, no, he's number 1 now. You're number 11. Get out of here.
Yeah, he gets banished to number 57. You'll see game 1. It's like he was wearing the number 1 in fall camp, but now we got wide receiver number 57.
What happened to that young man? In the words of Cliff, what happened to that boy? They're going to be asking.
Yeah. We love you guys. Thank you so much for making Locked On ACC your first listen and your first watch today. Of course, huge thanks to Kenton Gibbs. Check him out at Locked On Wolfpack. I am Alex Dono. Check me out at Locked On Canes, and we'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On ACC. We're part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.